about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. 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 Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything.
Good morning, Rooted Men. Matt Ryan from the Rooted Ministries. Pleasure to be with you this morning. Sorry, I'm trying to get things square here. For some reason, it's being a little funny on me. Well, I don't know why, but I always talk about the weather. I guess I inherited that from generations of Midwestern family that that's what we do. But hey, there's sunshine this morning. I know that's good news for many of us. We look like we're heading back to some warm temperatures after a dip this week. So, man, I'm hoping that this end of winter has got you feeling lighter as it does me. A little hopeful of things to come. Obviously, hopeful of things to come is quite a theme as we have now entered Lent. I'm hoping that all of you were able to get to the Ash Wednesday service this week. If you were not, I so strongly encourage you to go listen to it. Find it on YouTube, find it on our website, listen to that sermon. It was not only very powerful, it was such a good encapsulation of our Christian walk, of our life kind of as it was meant to be, as it should be. And it gives us some real direction to move forward, to progress. And I think that those of you who've been around a while and have heard me speak and have heard me do these devotionals, that tends to be something you hear from me a lot too, is practical things we can do to move forward, steps we can take, challenges for each day. And so obviously that's, it resonated a lot with me, and I know it will with you too. So we're going to continue working our way through Judges. We're Judges 16 this morning, verse 10. And we're continuing this story of Samson and Delilah, one of those well-known Bible stories, one of those stories known as, I would say, pop culture. I don't know that pop culture tends to carry with it the assumption that it's something happening brand new. So no, but oftentimes we can talk about trivia and things that people know, whether they're religious or not, whether they're into all these things, it's a story that resonates, right? And I think the reason it resonates is because we all know the dynamic of relationships, especially intimate relationships, right? So much of our life can be built around what we're kind of looking for, what we're kind of needing, right? And this relationship as God designed it for us to be, whether it be in a marriage relationship or a dating relationship. It's something we can all relate to, that seeking, that belonging, that drunkenness that can come from lust, right? That need to be connected to someone in that most close and intimate of ways. Because everyone can relate to it. Because if you look back at the history of created works, art, literature, sculpture, painting, television, movies, song, almost all of it, I shouldn't say almost all, but an overwhelming majority of it has a relationship at its center, right? There's a story in every movie. There's always a love story. There's always a story of brokenness or something about that main connected relationship. Again, I don't mean to beat that point, but why does this one hit us, right? Why does it resonate? Why does it stick with us? Well, because like so many of our real human relationships, it's broken. And the brokenness in this relationship seems to be, on its surface anyway, twofold, in that Delilah is in it for money, for prestige, having her name connected to someone powerful, right? These seem to be her motivations. While Samson seems to be so overwhelmingly controlled by his lust for Delilah, by his desire to be with her, that he can't seem to make a sound decision. Parts of both of those sides sound familiar to all of us, right? We've probably been a lot of those things at times in our lives. And of course, it'll be the downfall of Samson. And we talked, I know, a couple weeks ago, the last time I was on, I know, everybody else who's done these in between has worked through this story as well. But this vow to be a Nazirite that Samson, I would say made, but it was made for him, right? This is an unusual thing, that his life was dedicated to this, what was typically a short-term kind of fasting process, a short-term process of recentering oneself and focusing on glorifying God, that his entire life would be lived this way, which of course gave him great power, gave him great focus. And we see that falling apart here. We see Delilah's desires for her money, right? For her wealth, for what she was promised. And of course, we don't know. She's never really mentioned again after the story, so we don't know how all that turned out. But so her motivation causes her to break the covenant of trust with Samson, to push in, to pry in, to force him to tell his secret by manipulating him, by telling him, oh, how can you say you love me? Questioning his love, right? Challenging him to do something he knows not to be right in the name of, if you love me, you would. Insert Meatloaf here, right? If I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. No, maybe not. This manipulation is powerful, right? Because it's temptation. It's coming directly from one that you love, or at least have convinced yourself that you love, someone who you let into your circle, someone who you share an intimate, connected relationship with. But the manipulation's as evil as can be. But does Samson see it? Right? How often are we in situations where we know the right thing to do and we compromise in the face of temptation, in the face of pressure, right? So it's easy to relate with Samson in a way. It's hard to understand giving up all he's giving up. But what if he already knew? What if he already knew that he had messed up this oath, this Nazirite life, that he wasn't really living it, and he was just kind of giving in to the reality at this point? Giving into accepting the truth and the understanding that this vow had already been broken. So maybe we kind of view this as though it was some snap decision, or he was under this cloud, this mystical cloud, that he was deceived and he couldn't make good decisions. But what if he knew and he was just accepting his fate? He was just accepting the fact that he had failed to live out this oath that he was born under. It's a different way of looking at it, right? To be sympathetic with Samson. To be sympathetic with the one who's been manipulated, the one who's been tempted. Not so hard for us to do, right? I'm telling you, man, part of this life is about, of course, rooting yourself. Of course, that's the word that would come to mind. Rooting yourself not only in God's eternal love and truth, but what that means for me. What my integrity is, what my character is. It's those things we try to instill in our kids because they're so important, because we know that when temptations come and manipulations come, we get one chance to get it right. And if I'm rooted to who I am and whose I am, and I'm connected to my sense of character, my sense of integrity, I've already made all those decisions. When temptation comes, I already have decided I'm going to live according to this standard. It's kind of like in business where we have a mission statement, right? And when a new opportunity comes up, we process it through that mission statement. Does it fit what we want to do? Does it serve who we want to serve? Same thing here. If you have a beacon that you're navigating toward, meaning you have a set level of integrity, a set level of character, your decisions are already made. You don't get caught up in the moment. You're not deciding based on irrational emotion, pressure. Of course, it's easier said than done. But I would challenge you, just like I, strangely enough, just had this conversation with my 14-year-old about defining who he is so that peer pressure doesn't cause him to bump into guardrails, to go over the edge. It's the same thing for us, gentlemen. Wisdom, right? Many of us are gifted with it, but the problem with wisdom is that it comes too late. Often it comes through pain, right? So I just want to encourage you today. Stand firm in a conviction of who you are and whose you are. And if you haven't thought about it, spend some time. Who am I? What's integrity mean to me? What does a commitment to my values mean? Am I willing to hold on to it? What are my values? These are some great questions. This isn't water cooler conversation about how Michigan or Michigan State are playing in basketball and which one is going to win this weekend, right? This is some real conversation. Some that should be had internally, some that should be had with your spouse or your most connected and trusted friends, some that should be had with your pastor or your elder. Who am I? What does it mean to live by integrity, to live by character? What are my standards? Always a good question to be refreshing and asking again. Because trust me, men, if temptations of the world and the manipulations of the world can take over Samson, who had dedicated his life to live so close to his calling, they can happen to you too, right? And for many of us, it probably has many times. We're very fortunate to be one who can sit and say as an adult, I never gave into any temptations, right? All right, man. Don't mean for that to be heavy, but take that with you and give you something to ponder today, this weekend, this week, however long it takes. I'd love to continue that conversation with you. I know there's other men in this group who would too. So, hey, let's have a great weekend. Let's make it a great Friday and make it a firmly rooted day. And hey, may someone see Jesus in us today. Peace.